Hey everybody, good morning. Mestre Sukrudi here. Friday morning, and I want to talk about something that happened today that was really interesting for me. Excuse me, I got a new laptop and I'm trying to figure out how everything goes. I'm trying to figure out the lighting a little bit better. Okay, recently there's a lot of movement and talk about racism, right? And discrimination. And I think it's important to call it out when you hear it or when you see it, even if it's somebody else's experience. The problem with the establishment is that when a minority person says racism, a lot of times people think they're just whining, okay? Or that we're hypersensitive to something. So what I want to talk today is an experience that I heard this morning from somebody who I love beyond belief, okay? My son, Dede, he's the best. And he is half Japanese, half American, or if you want to get deeper, he's half Japanese, a quarter Polish, a quarter half Japanese, quarter Mexican, quarter Polish. So I walk him to school every day, I try to do the best I can so he can practice English too. And he was telling me about one of his classmates here in Japan, and I'm saying this only because this is the standard in Japan. People need to wake up because of the microaggressions and embedded racism here in Japan. Okay, I'm not saying it's over the board like in the United States, but it does exist, and if we don't call it out, nothing will change. So, my son was practicing for what they call an English test, right? An English test, Aiken. And he was mumbling to himself, or he was talking to himself yesterday about this. He told me at school practicing, because it's a memorization test. So he was like, memorizing what he had to say for the tests. And I believe it's an oral exam or something. And he said, well, of course, he's half, but remember, we live in Japan, so honestly, he doesn't speak English well, and that's mostly because the opportunity to speak with me is very little bit per day, and he's surrounded 90% of the time by Japanese. So the language makes it difficult for him to learn English. So a lot of times people say, well, why, you're half, so you must speak English well. First of all, I'm not going to get into that because that's even more difficult to talk about here. So, when he was talking to himself and practicing, one of his classmates, someone he says, I don't know, maybe jealous or whatever, I'm not going to get into the other person's feelings, says, oh, you're showing off with native accent. Why don't you pronounce the English like all the rest of the Japanese people do? This is Japan. This you should do as everybody else does. Now, I would have said, are you sure he said that? Except the fact that for 20 years I've heard the exact same thing. And I can name 1,000 foreigners here who have heard the exact same thing. It's embedded in the culture to react that way. So I hope that with videos like this, people who see them, who understand them, can say, okay, look, we're thinking this way, we're talking this way, we're self-defeating this way, we are racist this way. And little by little, it'll change. Because my son is half, but he was born here. So he has just as much right to Japan as anyone else does. So do I. And you know why I say that? Because I've been here 20 years, and I have always paid my taxes. I have always contributed to community. I have always done, which is a lot more than people who are just born here. Okay? To use the excuse that this is Japan, this is how it should be, is just ignorant, and it's racist. And that's exactly what I told my son. And I said probably that person in the future will not change their way of thinking, and that hopefully in the future, by you having a more broad and open mind, you can understand that the world is this big for you, while for him, it's already been closed by himself this big. I'm not going to get into the whole topic of how the kid learned to say this and everything. I'm just going to say that's the way it is. Okay? This is my opinion. I'm throwing it out there because I believe as a community person who contributes to community, one of the things I have to contribute is honesty to things that happen here. if you ever had this experience in Japan where people have said, oh, this is Japan, or my favorite, 日本人だから英語喋りません, which means I'm Japanese, I can't speak English. That's something people say here incredibly ignorantly, because there are a lot of Japanese people who speak English on a native level, and that's only by choice and self-denial, self-loathing, self-putting down that you can't learn. I speak 4 languages. At one time I spoke 6, and it's only because opportunity and skill. So today I want to say about this is guys, racism is learned, but the difference between stupid and ignorant, remember? Ignorant doesn't know. Stupid doesn't want to know. I know it's a little heavy for today, but any of you guys who have kids here who are half, or who are raising kids in Japan or in a foreign country, tell me you don't agree. Alright guys, have a great Friday, and I hope that this helps to inspire us to think about how we react to things, right? For example, at the same time, we can't react to the people here in Japan as only one way. We have to give everybody a chance and respect each other as human beings. Ashe, Mestre Sukuri, Mestre Vibes.